Welcome, everyone. This is Elsie Kerns, your Chaos to Clarity coach and energy medicine expert. And tonight, we have an exciting event because Pam Younghans is going to take us through July through December, and she has selected this evening, or it's daytime out in the Pacific coast, because it's going to be a new moon and we're going to have a partial eclipse. So we also have some other exciting eclipses upcoming and events, and Pam is going to take us through that step by step. So if you have your calendars, you can pull those out. If not, they'll be part of the replay, and you can always download those and keep those for yourself. So Pam, welcome.
Thank you, Elsie.
Turn it over to you and let you take over.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, thank you, Elsie, for doing all of the behind the scenes work, and especially with this new platform, making sure that everybody figured out the Zoom piece of it. It seems pretty simple, so I'm glad that it's working so well. So yeah, I'm going to go back and forth between the live shot, and then I do have a slideshow. So I'm going to share the screen off my computer from time to time just to walk you through some things, and then I'll talk live about well, you'll see me on camera for some of the information as well. So I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited to see all the faces in their little boxes along the top of the Zoom screen. It's very Jetson, which is so fun. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen. We're just going to get started. And I think everybody knows that if they have a question, they can they can press that chat button down at the bottom of the screen and ask a question at some point. All right, so here we go. So this is, of course, the title page for our class today. And I'm calling it Entering the Chasm for a few reasons. It really feels like we're at an opening to some pretty powerful, amazing, transformational energies. And so Entering the Chasm felt right. And then I don't remember whether the artwork came first or the name came first, but they kind of coincided. I found this artwork on a friend's Facebook page. It's by Daniel Ranger. I have his website there if you're interested in looking at more of his work. He's in Australia. But it's such a powerful image, and it just really goes in with what we're going to be talking about today. So this is a little bit of a close-up of it. I just wanted you to see some of the details. And what I want to do is talk about this chasm. So we can see that, we look across this vast expanse and we think, how the heck are we going to get over there? But you can see in this image that the trail continues, even though there isn't ground beneath it. So what I thought about and what really fell into place then was how each one of the major planets fits into this artwork. So I'm going to just walk us through each one of these, because this is going to give us an overview of what's going on with the bigger picture, what the slower moving planets are doing right now, because those really anchor the energy for this time period that we're looking at. So looking at the image, the person at the top there, she goes along with Chiron in Aries. Chiron is that wounded healer. Chiron in Aries is the wound of insecurity, uncertainty, not feeling like we have the energy or the strength or the courage to do what we need to do. And so she, this image of this person about to go on this trail across nothing, I'm sure she's feeling some of those feelings. So this is where Chiron in Aries really shows up in this image. And then we have Uranus and Taurus. Uranus just went into Taurus, and we're going to talk more about this in a few minutes. But Taurus is Earth, and Uranus disrupts energy. So you can see that the Earth is falling away from beneath the trail that this person is on. And so this really represents the energy of Uranus and Taurus. It does feel like something is falling away. The things that we had depended on, things that were substantial, seem to be falling away. And then we have Pluto in Capricorn. So Pluto goes deeper than Uranus. Pluto goes into our psyches, into our emotional well-being, into the very framework and structure of our society, because Pluto is in Capricorn, which rules social structures, it rules governments, things like that. And so Pluto is the great transformer. Pluto in Capricorn is really whittling away at those places where there is decay. And so what it does, first of all, is expose where all that decay is. So we're certainly seeing a lot of decay in social structures, in government hierarchies, in many things that Capricorn represents. However, Saturn is also in Capricorn. So Saturn is trying to hold the status quo. Saturn is over here on the trail, which has, you know, it's very solid, it's big stones, it's got tree roots in it, so it's very solid, and Saturn is trying to keep things together. And yet it's also, you know, testing us. Is this solid? Is the ground beneath our feet solid, or does it need to go into Pluto's realm and be whittled away, or does it need to go in Uranus's realm and just kind of fracture away? So the Saturn is keeping things, or trying to keep things a little bit more stable, so this progress is slower. And then we have Jupiter in Scorpio, and it's way down here at the bottom. It's kind of hidden with the branches. So Scorpio is a sign that goes very deep. It's emotional, it's psychotherapeutic, it just goes to some really deep unconscious levels. And Jupiter always magnifies the energy of whatever sign it's in, and so Jupiter is making these darker sides of our personalities, of society, even larger than we normally see them, so that we can see them, acknowledge them, and do something about them. And then blessed Neptune. So here's Neptune in Pisces, and you can see that the Neptune in Pisces is way out there, kind of in the clouds. It's disappearing into the distance. Neptune is about having faith when we don't know the outcomes, having faith when we can't see where we're going. And so this is the section of this artwork that really belongs to Neptune in Pisces, because we have to have this faith. We also have to keep our eye on this distant point and have faith that the outcome is going to be uplifting and positive and is supported by the universe. Now, this whole idea of keeping our eye on the distant point, I think, is really important. I was looking at this image and thinking about this time and thinking about how it was to learn how to drive. So I remember my mom being beside me in the car and trying to learn how to drive and going down the road, and I would keep my eye on that center line, and sure enough, we'd be drifting over across the center line. So my mom's instruction was, don't look at the line, don't look at the right-hand side of the road, look further down, look to where you're going. I think we need to keep that advice in mind now, because there's so many distractions, there's so many things that can pull us off course, that can pull us off of center, that really unbalance and unground us. And so keeping our eye on that distant point where we want to go doesn't mean we ignore what's around us. We're aware of it. We do what we need to do, but we also keep that perspective going. All right, so that's the image, and I hope that makes sense to everybody. It just was so striking to me how it all fell into place with how I'm viewing this time frame that we're looking at. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the outer planets first. All of those outer planets that I just looked at, they move more slowly, so they kind of create the background, the backdrop, and they often play an important role in any big event that we have. And so let's kind of look at them one by one. Uranus represents where we're ready for breakthrough and change, but where we may experience breakdown and upheaval. So Uranus entered Taurus in, I think it was May 15th, 16th in there, so mid-May. And Taurus is an earth sign. So one of the things that's been predicted for this 7-year period when Uranus is in Taurus is lots of earth changes. You know, more earthquakes, more volcanoes, more that kind of shift that's very visible, that's very physical. And sure enough, you know, the week before Uranus moved into Taurus, Mount Kilauea started erupting with its current fervor. And it's been erupting ever since, and there have been almost daily earthquakes of 5 point whatever and above. So really, this to me really represents that Uranus shift that's going on. Big changes, ongoing changes, keeping things destabilized, but representing some big shifts that are occurring. So when Uranus moved into Taurus, it also squared Mars right away. So Mars was moved into early Aquarius, Uranus moved into early Taurus, and they were 90 degrees apart. We're going to talk about this a fair amount today because this is pivotal. What happened that week when Uranus and Mars were square for the first time was when the American embassy, the U.S. embassy, was moved into Jerusalem, and there were a lot of protests and violence as a result. And so I hope that we don't see a lot of violence with this, but that's a part of that Uranus-Mars energy that we might see more of, and we'll talk more about that when those dates come in. So I wanted to show you, so I'm going back to the share screen for a moment. Because I wanted to show you all of the things that Taurus represents. So while Uranus is in Taurus, it has the effect of revolutionizing, energizing, and manifesting new forms. And these are just some of the things that Taurus represents. So things like agriculture, farming, manufacturing, everything that we create in the physical that supports us in practical or aesthetic ways, because Taurus also rules beauty. So we're seeing a lot of new things in those areas, new ways of farming. And then Taurus rules finances, so new ways of banking, the Bitcoin. I mean, that started a while ago, but it's really something that's amping up, getting even bigger now that Uranus is in Taurus. Now, Uranus also represents the force of higher consciousness. So we see things like color therapy and crystal healing and sound healing, you know, anything that uses our senses but uses a vibrational capacity to affect change or affect healing. These are going to be, I believe, manifesting in a bigger way or being more energized during this time. And then we can certainly see Uranus is already having an effect on nature with the volcanoes that have erupted, not only in Hawaii, but Guatemala. And so we expect to see more of that as well. So we are in a very powerful time of change for everyone, but especially for anybody who was born at the end of a cardinal sign, so Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, or at the beginning of a fixed sign, so Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, because that's the area that Uranus is in effect right now. And Uranus is going to be very strong at many points in the calendars that we're going to be looking at later, especially, you know, times when it's interacting with Mars or it's activated by a new or full moon. Even one of the eclipses is very strongly involving Uranus. So important dates we'll look at in depth, but we've got the July 27th, the lunar eclipse. August 1st is the second square with Mars. August 7th, Uranus goes retrograde. September 8th is the third and final square with Mars. September 18th, excuse me. We have a full moon on October 24th that is aligned with Uranus. And then Uranus returns to Aries in early November. So those dates are all significant, I think. I think that we'll see more events related to the effects of Uranus around those times. So moving on to the other planets, Jupiter right now is in Scorpio. It's been there since last October. It's been going along with, you know, the Me Too movement, Time's Up, all the investigations and revelations and the dark side being revealed. And it's revealing these secrets, exposing the underbelly of the beast. It's how it feels to me. Jupiter will enter Sagittarius in November, and we'll talk more about that when we're in the November timeframe. We talked about Chiron in Aries with our first image of the artwork. So, and that's always exposing a wound for healing. So the wound is insecurity or fear or feeling like we don't have a right to be here or we can't have what we want. That is the wound that's being exposed so that it can be healed. September 24th is going to be important with Chiron because that's a full moon that's aligned with Chiron. And Chiron will return to Pisces in the end of September, so we'll talk about that. We talked about Pluto with the first image. Pluto can have very dramatic effect. It tears things down, it reveals unconscious motivations. It's a powerful, powerful catalyst for change. So it's very strongly involved in our eclipse today. We have this Sun and Moon in Cancer and Pluto opposing them in Capricorn. I've had some thoughts about that today that have come forward for me that I think are relevant. And I think it's really transforming, showing us where old ways of being more shy or not asserting ourselves, because Cancer is a very strong sign, but it also, it can feel threatened pretty easily and it can pull back. You know, think of Cancer the crab, it hides under a rock, or, you know, if it feels really threatened, it attacks, but it's more likely to kind of pull back and not engage. And I think Pluto is showing us where that's not going to work anymore, where we have to come forward, where we have to engage in some way. And it'll be different for every one of us how that manifests. But I think that's a part of the energy of this lunar eclipse today. And then Pluto will be very strong the end of September when it goes direct. And then Neptune. Neptune's usually more subtle energy. It's a major player right now because Neptune rules addiction. And it's in Pisces, which is the sign that has to do with escapism and addiction and those kind of things. So I think Neptune in Pisces has to do with the opioid epidemic that we're seeing, the increase in homelessness. And so to look at the bigger picture of this, each of us can ask ourselves what we are addicted to, and in what ways do we feel unsupported or feel like we lack grounding. And to start working on this internally. I think we can all work externally as well, but Neptune is very, very focused on our spiritual growth and our individual process of moving beyond some of these places that just aren't working anymore for us. And then I'm also putting Mars in this group of outer planets. Mars is not an outer planet. It moves relatively quickly. It takes 2 years to go around the zodiac. But it's very significant now. It's going retrograde right now, and when a planet is retrograde, it's closer to the Earth than at other times. It's in square aspect to Uranus, as we talked about. It's in Aquarius, which usually, you know, can correspond with radical actions, and the use of force can meet with unexpected results with Mars in Aquarius. And it's also out of bounds, so from July 7th to September 24th. So what that means is, I'm glad we have visual, I get to show you. So we have the plane of the ecliptic, which is the orbit area that the Earth uses as it goes around the sun. And all of the planets generally stay in that same plane, but from time to time, just because of the way it orbits and tilt of the Earth and all of that, it appears that they go outside of the plane of the ecliptic. And when a planet does that, we say that they're out of bounds. And how that manifests is that it's kind of like the wild card. The planet acts out in different ways. It acts unexpectedly. We can't control it in the same way. So that's going on right now too. And so Mars is in that kind of more frenetic place as well. And just to give you an example of people who have Mars out of bounds in their birth charts, Robin Williams. So, you know, he was definitely the wild man, definitely out of bounds. Pablo Picasso, you know, so out there with his art for the time, especially. And sharpshooter Annie Oakley, she was born in the 1860s. If you know the story of Annie Get Your Gun, you know, she was a sharpshooter when women just weren't doing that. So she was definitely the wild card, definitely out of bounds. And then the other thing about Mars is that on July 30th and 31st, Mars is going to be the closest to the Earth that it's been since 2003. So all of this kind of increases Mars energy, which is very proactive, very assertive, has to do with anger, has to do with aggression. Lots of things can come forward when we see Mars in the calendars. All right, so let's go back to the screen share for a minute and talk about the retrogrades. So retrograde, when a planet is retrograde, it turns our attention inward. For instance, with Mercury retrograde, we're supposed to look inward and review and rethink things rather than focusing on outer forms of communication, which usually end up not going according to plan. So that happens with all of the planets. They turn their energy inward. And I want us to be aware, before I show you the next slide, that starting August 8th, 6 planets plus Chiron will be retrograde. So 6 out of our 10 planets plus Chiron. This is a huge amount of planets all going backwards at the same time. That's going to be there for a couple of weeks. So it just tells us how strong a focus there is on our inner work. Our inner work is really important right now. So here are the dates when the different planets are retrograde over the next 6 months and what each one of the planets rules. So just to be knowing that when a planet goes retrograde, so during those dates, in this area we're meant to be doing more of a review, not initiate process, but to review and go within and become more subjective about what the process is, so that we can seek our truth, seek new information, so that when the planet goes direct, which is the second date in the list every time, that we're ready to really move forward in a more proactive way and with some of the issues resolved that we found out when we were in that retrograde period. All right, so let's talk about the karmic nodes. So the nodes, you probably, if you know astrology, you've heard about the North and South node. They have to do with, the North node is our karmic evolutionary direction, and the South node is our default node, and ways that we might get pulled into the past, pulled into unhealthy behaviors, pulled in the direction we don't want to go. So when we're looking at the North node in Leo, as it is right now, we're learning to be more heart-centered, less analytical in our actions. We're learning to take risks, to be willing to stand out in a crowd, to not hide. We also are encouraged to create more of a sense of belonging with others, rather than to be too estranged or to feel too separate. And so this is part of the process of that North node in Leo and the South node in Aquarius. So on November 6th, the nodes are going to change signs. So we're shifting our evolutionary imperative, you might call it. And the nodes move backwards through the zodiac. So North node will move into Cancer, South node will move into Capricorn on November 6th. So this is important now, today, because our eclipse, as we'll talk about in a few minutes, our eclipse is actually in Cancer. So it's already trying to help us shift into this new evolutionary direction that we're going to start going in even more profoundly in the fall, well, in November. So North node in Cancer is about developing empathy, learning how to nurture and support each other, strengthening our own emotional foundations, being willing to share our feelings honestly, being willing to be vulnerable, letting go of the need to control, realize that the ends do not justify the means, and letting go of trying to impress others with a show of authority. And I think we know a lot of people who do that, and we even do that ourselves sometimes. So let's go back to the share screen. So I just listed some dates to watch. These aren't the only important dates, but I wanted to really emphasize how much this is weighted in the first 3 months of our 6-month period. We have August, September, July, August, July, September. And then we've got the 3 last ones that I put in there in October, November. But we are really in a crunch period right now. The eclipses are certainly part of it. but we've got so much else going on. So remembering to breathe, we need to talk to Elsie about her techniques for energy balancing and grounding and calming during this time. All right, so let's see, where am I going now? Oops. Yeah. All right, so hold on. So let's talk about the eclipses. I'm going to talk about the eclipses in a group instead of waiting for when they show up in the calendars, because we're already in July. We're already in the midst of this. We can't really separate the eclipses out one from another. We're really in this phase of time right now. So eclipses are strongest within the month that they occur, but they also have an influence over the next 6 months until the next set of eclipses happens. And we really are in a shift point. So as I said, today's eclipse is in Cancer. Eclipses stay in a certain pair of signs for about 18 months. So back in early 2017, eclipses started to be in Leo and Aquarius. And now we're at the next shift point, and they're starting to shift into Cancer and Capricorn. So another indicator of what a big shift point we're in. It's not settled energy, and it certainly feels that way. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the first eclipse here. Oh, yeah, before I go there, I wanted to mention that I'm going to talk about some fixed stars. I'm also going to talk about some degree symbols. These are just some resources if you want to read more about them. I've gotten a lot of my information about fixed stars from Roderick Kidston's book that's imaged there. And then I've started looking at the Chandra Omega symbols. There's also Sabian symbols, which may be more familiar to people, but the Chandra Omega symbols are pretty profound as well, and I've used them today in our class, so you'll see what they are like. So here's our eclipse for today. It's exact in 3 hours and change. So you can see from the chart, we have the sun and moon in Cancer. And then we talked about Pluto being exactly opposite the sun and moon. So 20 degrees to 20 degrees. So this is really a powerful eclipse in many ways. Even though it's a partial eclipse, it has this energy of Pluto really infused into it. So what I was talking about before, as far as claiming our power back, this is something that's very important to do on an individual level. I mean, in a bigger way too, we can certainly do that. But where I'm finding it manifesting is in a very, it's in a smaller area of my life, but it's a very profound area of my life that nobody else is necessarily going to know about. But I'm very aware that I can't go to that hide place anymore. I can't go to the Cancer comfort zone. Pluto in Capricorn is pulling me out, and I think that this is how it's working for all of us. So Pluto, when it's involved in any kind of event, but especially this eclipse, it intensifies things. It deepens our emotions. It brings issues up from the unconscious. It certainly is very transformative. It requires that we release something from the past. It can bring up power struggles, tug of war. Things can feel outside of our control. So it is time to let go of our attachments to things we cannot control. And time to reflect on those themes of power and control in our individual lives, and to claim power back as seems appropriate. So as you see with the, sorry, take these off because they're bothering me. So the sun and moon are aligned with the fixed star Castor. And Castor is one of the Gemini twins, and it was the one who was mortal. So there's something here, because there was Pollux who was immortal, Castor was mortal. So there is something here about endings, and that goes along with Pluto's involvement, because Pluto ruled the underworld, so he did have to do with a death process, a death and rebirth process. So we really have to look at what's dying away now, and what's ready to be reborn. There's an emphasis on writing and communication with this, because Castor was an intellectual being. But there's also a level of impulsiveness that comes forward with Castor. So we have to be aware of that. There's more show-off tendencies. People tend to control things more with Castor's influence. But we also have a grand Earth trine in effect, which is really supportive and helpful. So it involves Saturn and Uranus and Juno, and over there hidden behind the images of people is, oh, I can't get there. There we go. Whoops. Is Venus and Ceres. So these are all, this forms a triangle, and this is very supportive energy. So it's helping us ground, it's helping us center, it's helping us stay focused. It's also, we've got a lot of relationship energy here. We've got Ceres, we've got Venus, and we've got Juno. Those are all of those are female energies that have to do with relationship. And so I think this eclipse is also saying, where is your support group? Who do you want to support? Who supports you? How do you connect with people in your life and really ground that connection? Because that's going to be really helpful as we have to work with some of these very powerful energies. And then you can see the Chandra symbol and the Omega symbols down there in the left-hand corner. Chandra symbol, high up on a mountain, an eagle's nest. And then the Omega symbol, a man milking a poisonous snake of its venom so that he can make an antidote. So there's a lot here about getting a higher perspective, viewing life from a higher place so that we can see the whole picture, stay above the chaos, not get caught up in the negativity. And then, especially with the second image, it's about being able to turn negative into positive and to find benefit in places that we usually don't think of as being helpful or beneficial. So that's today's eclipse, and this is the new moon. So powerful time to, use some of the things that we've just talked about and write those into your new moon affirmations, your new moon ceremonies. And to, especially bring in that energy of support, grounding, centering, important people who can support you, people that you want to support, because that is such a positive part of this eclipse chart. So, and then we move to the lunar eclipse on July 27th. So we have the new moon, and the lunar eclipse will be the full moon. This is a total lunar eclipse. So it is supposed to be more powerful when it's a total eclipse. So be aware of that. It's also very powerful because the moon is aligned with all of these other things in Aquarius. So we have the moon, we have Mars, and we have the south node, all right within 2 degrees of each other. So this is a south node eclipse, so a very karmic eclipse, meant to bring forward some old issues for resolution. Those issues may have to do with the use of aggression and anger, which are the negative sides of Mars, which, looking at the negative side of Aquarius, can cause separation and social disruption. So this is going to be a very emotional time, a very kind of confrontational time, and it's just something to be aware of. The eclipse is also square Uranus. So Uranus is over here at 2 degrees. So it's really activating that Uranus-Mars square, because Uranus is squaring all of that in Aquarius. So I think some of the things we mentioned about that Uranus-Mars square we need to watch out for around then. Tempers heightened, things unexpected happening, big emotions, emotional upheaval, mood swings, all of that. So even more important, looking back to today's eclipse and the grounding energy that's in this eclipse, to really focus on how do I build that so that when we get to this lunar eclipse on the 27th, we're not taken down by this. And then using the Chandra symbols, keeping that higher perspective, keeping our eye on where we're going, not on the distractions on the side. This lunar eclipse is aligned with the fixed star Alshot. And so this is, this is also strong energy. It can be obsessive or militant. It can be rigid worldview. So we've really got strong energy that we're working with. And yet this is the karmic piece that we're trying to move away from. We're trying to move away from the militant way of approaching things, from a rigid worldview. We're trying to move away from that. But this eclipse may bring that forward so that we can see it clearly. For the symbols, we've got the Chandra symbol, humans worshiping an obese nature goddess, and the Omega symbol is gradually the wind unearths a temple buried in the sand. So these are about being receptive to the good things in life, being receptive to how much good there really is, and then also clearing away those things that just don't matter, clearing away the meaningless details, seeking that divine essence that is the gold of our existence, and letting go of the negativity that's hidden the gold. So, and then we have a third eclipse. So we don't usually have 3 eclipses in a row. It happens every so often. I think the last time it happened was 2013. So, that's 5 years ago. So not every day, not every year, but when it does happen, there's a bigger impulse of energy going on. All right, so this solar eclipse is another partial eclipse. It has the sun and moon aligned with Pallas Athena and Mercury. So in a sense, this is, very creative, even imaginative energy, very insightful, and yet it can also be information overload because we've got a T-square with Jupiter and Juno. So these are opposing each other, and then the sun and moon are, forming a T-square there. So, and we know Jupiter always makes things bigger. It's always the magnifier. So part of what can come up with this is that we can feel really creative and expansive and want to express ourselves, but we have to be careful not to overdo because it can cause conflict. Jupiter and Juno were husband and wife in mythology, and they battled a lot. And this is kind of the quintessential battle. One of them not seeing the other one as being loyal, accusing them of betrayal and all of that. So it's kind of an opportunity for us to, be clear on what we think, what we believe, how we want to express ourselves, but also be cognizant of the impact we have on others and not to overdo. And certainly we look at the moon being aligned, sun and moon being aligned with the fixed star Altar, and that's very dramatic energy, desire to be in the spotlight. So we have to kind of watch the ego expression of this. Also, what's very important is the fact that we've got a yod. So a yod is called the finger of God. So we've got our group here, all aligned in Leo, and then they form what's called a quincunx with Neptune, and they form another quincunx with Pluto, and then Pluto and Neptune are in a harmonious relationship to each other. But this is called the finger of God. That's just the name that's been given to this kind of configuration. So the lessons, there are lessons involved with this. We already have seen some of them, but lessons of personal will and how we use power. We need to understand our ego drive and make sure that pride doesn't get in the way of our living at a higher level. We have an opportunity to make a shift with this eclipse, but we have to be very conscious about it. We need to do some self-examination and more fully incorporate our spiritual values into how we use our personal power. Basically, we want to rule. Leo is the ruler, the king of the jungle, with compassion, Neptune, and insight, Pluto. But if we're not able to pull that together, we may see this in the world, there's more emotional reactivity, people can get defensive. So we're trying to move away from that, but it may be exposed in a bigger way with this eclipse. The symbols, are really lovely. We have a hummingbird feeding at the trumpet vine, and a painting is cleaned, revealing colors of otherworldly beauty. So this tells us that we are defining what we really need and what brings beauty into our lives. We're working to clear away the parts that aren't really us and that really don't contribute to our lives so that our authentic self can emerge. So this is a gradual process. It's not going to be done overnight, but this eclipse is a solar eclipse, so it's a new moon, another opportunity to set some intentions. But both of these symbols are about getting down to the essentials, releasing what is not needing or is not supportive. All right, so I'm going to take a quick drink of water. Elsie, do we have any questions or anything that people are worried about or concerned?
I'm just going to check. No, nothing yet has come in.
Okay, and that's just fine. We can move on. So now we're ready for the monthly calendars. So if you've got yours in hand and want to take some notes, that's a good time to do this. Most of you are, if you've been in one of my classes before, you know that I have pulled cards, tarot cards for every month. I haven't done that this time, but I've pulled a couple of them, one for an overview at the beginning and then one for guidance at the end. So when I asked about an overview for this next 6-month period, I got Iris. So this is from the Power of Flowers deck by Isha Lerner. So Iris is the goddess of the rainbow. And this is really profound. So she traveled through the lower dark and the upper light regions with the graceful flow of an angelic dancer. So, you know, this is what we're being asked to do over these next 6 months, is to be able to see the darkness, move through the darkness, find the light, you know, do all of this with a grace, with a finesse and with faith and something that helps us stay both grounded and above the fray. And then it is in the weaving of the dark and light within ourselves that we find our wholeness. And that really speaks to me of how the outer world really reflects the inner world. You know, I can go on all day about how bad somebody is for all of their judgments, and here I am being really judgmental about somebody who judges. So it pulls me back and says, oh, okay, what is the dark inside of me? And how do I accept that? How do I work with that? So I think we want to be working internally, especially with all of these retrograde planets. Like I said, the first couple of weeks in August. And then as the planets start to go forward, we can start to move out into the world with a better knowing of who we are and how we want to proceed, and a better grounding and perspective. I think this is our job right now. All right, so let's dive into the calendars. So this is the calendar for July. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on what we've already gone through time-wise, and today is that solar eclipse that we just talked about. And I do want to mention, I'm not going to talk about every single aspect that's on here. I'm really going to pick and choose. I'm also going to watch our time. If we, you know, it starts getting crunch time, I really will focus on what stands out to me as the most important. And you'll see that there are stars on certain days. Those are the days where I really did feel like there was a greater impact. So on the 10th, 2 days ago, that was when Jupiter stationed. So Jupiter's energy was strong. We probably saw some new information come to light around that time, because Jupiter still is in Scorpio. It may have even, oh gosh, this is interesting. I didn't follow the story of the kids in Thailand who were in the cave, but is that when they came out? Because, wow, that would be amazing. Because Jupiter in Scorpio, so Scorpio is hidden and engulfed, and they were in the cave and the water was coming in, and Jupiter going forward is coming out of that energy. So that's interesting. That's pretty amazing. And then today, of course, the eclipse, I have the star there as well. All right, so I'm going to jump to next week, starting with Sunday, Monday. we've got hard aspects involving Mars and Mercury. So there can be communication challenges, watch irritations, that they don't go to bigger anger. And Sun square Aries. There's some other things in there that just feel a little sticky. So this is a really good time to get that higher perspective and to stay grounded in ourselves and to be willing to observe our own dark side without getting caught up in it. To the end of the week, on Friday, I put a star on it for two reasons. Mars is aligned with that south node. So we may very well see things come forward that go along with the things that we're leaving behind. So the divisiveness, the separation, the not wanting to get involved, the lack of heart. So might want to observe that in ourselves or observe it in the world, but also say, how can I take action to shift that in myself? But the really positive energy on that day is a nice quintile aspect between Saturn and Neptune. So you get Saturn and Neptune working together in positive relationship, and it's the reality represented by Saturn and the ideal represented by Neptune working together. So we can make progress here. When Mars is conjunct the south node and we see where we don't want to go, we can grab that ideal and we can ground it and we can make something of it. All right, let's move to the next week, calling it week 4. Got Pallas conjunct the north node. So Sunday looks like a nice day. It's a day for accessing creative ideas and wisdom that will lead us forward and in alignment with our evolutionary path. There's a lot of solar activity during this week. So I've kind of lumped Wednesday and Thursday together. You can see the stars kind of in both boxes there. It's a really big energy because the Sun squares Uranus and opposes Mars, so it's activating that Mars-Uranus square. So lots of heightened energy, lots of potential for breakdown, breakthrough, and the exact Uranus-Mars square is not very far off. It's August 1st, I believe. Is that right? I'll have to see when we get there. So just be aware of the tension that might be out there. Stay grounded. It can be harder to stay grounded when a lot of Uranus energy is afloat, but walk outside with bare feet. Breathe deep into your belly. Hug a tree. I mean, that sounds funny, but these things all help keep us grounded, which we will really need around that time. Plus, we've got the total lunar eclipse on the 27th that we talked about. So that whole week of July is pretty powerful. And then on the 28th, that Saturday, the Sun is conjunct the North Node. So it is trying to pull us into that next step, that evolutionary growth that we are talking about moving into. So by Saturday, we may more clearly see what we need to do as far as coming from our hearts, accepting a place of belonging, and really inviting participation, becoming a participant in life rather than an observer. Okay, the last week there's not a lot. So on the days where there's nothing going on, where there's no aspects listed, the moon is always doing something, but I don't put the moon aspects on here because they move through so quickly. I will talk about a couple of them, and I certainly do talk about the new and full moons. But looks like the last week of July will be mostly dealing with the fallout from that eclipse. All right, and so then we go into August, and yes, there's the Mars-Uranus square on August 1st. So as I said, the first one was in mid-May. We know what happened in the world at that time. Look at what happened in your own life. What was up? Was there tension? Were there changes? Was there anything explosive that went on? Are you trying to shift something in a big way? Were there breakdowns? Were there breakthroughs? How do you activate the shift without going into extremes? Because this can be very extreme energy. So remember that half of the planets, half of the 10 planets are moving backwards at the beginning of August. And then Uranus goes retrograde on the 8th. So this is that very introspective time, in a sense, very subjective time as well. And things that we do may not have the intended results. And we're always meant to be checking in with what we've done before or how we've done it so that we can rewrite our script. On Friday of that first week, we have Jupiter in Scorpio opposite Juno. That was included in the eclipse chart that I showed you. So it's just a little bit of contention, but it's not a huge deal. But still, Friday and Saturday of that week, also with Mercury in a hard aspect to Pluto on Saturday, not quite getting along. And certainly with the Mars square Uranus energy, it makes sense that we're in a little bit of a struggle for the rest of that week. Second week of August, we've got a little bit of not knowing quite what direction to go in at first with Sunday. Got a lot of drama. On Monday, Sun is square Jupiter, and we've got Mars and Mercury in some challenging aspects. Jupiter squares Pallas Athena, so drama and stubbornness. Conflicts can be exaggerated. But here on Tuesday, I've got a star on that day because Uranus goes retrograde, so that Uranus energy is very, very strong, change, shifting. I mean, think about the image of that artwork, how the ground is falling away beneath the path. That was that Uranus energy. Things can be falling away. However, we also have some positive energies on that day. So we can have a positive exchange of ideas. We can feel more creative. We can feel inspired, even as we are dealing with some big changes. So one thing we do want to watch for with Uranus so strong, all of those effects when we had that list of what Taurus rules and Uranus and Taurus making these things change. So we may see more Earth changes around this time. Certainly between the Mars square Uranus and Uranus going retrograde, and then the eclipse, we've just got a lot of changing energies going on there. So how do we deal with that if we think, oh my gosh, there might be an earthquake or the volcano is going to erupt or more hurricanes or something like that? The best thing we can do is to stay in our calm center anyway, because to me, that's a reflection of all of the turmoil that's going on. It is a release. It's one of the Earth's ways or nature's ways of releasing energy, and it does work in that way, but it's an opportunity for us to stay grounded. It also, anytime there are any kind of catastrophes, major changes that affect a lot of people, it brings people together. And I think that's one of the bigger, if we think of a higher purpose for some of these things, I think that can be at least one of the higher purposes. So it might just be part of the manifestations around that time. So just try not to act too impulsively. When Uranus is strong, we do tend to be more impulsive, and yet that may not do well. That may take us off in directions that we don't expect, or you may stub your toe. It's those kind of things. So be very conscious, be very aware of what you're doing, what you're saying, how you're moving through that time period. Wednesday got a lot going on. The focus is on communication and self-expression, but we may not meet everybody's approval. So there are some tests of loyalty in relationships and alliances on that day. On Thursday, we've got some insights, but some stress is going on. We've got new ideas activated, but again, what we share with others may not necessarily be accepted, and watch out for misunderstandings that occur. It doesn't mean don't have these ideas, but let them gestate. Remember, for Mercury being retrograde, it's a time to sit with ideas rather than necessarily moving them into form or sharing them necessarily, but letting them kind of gestate. And then we have the solar eclipse on the 11th. So, powerful time. And looking at that week, it's just jam-packed. So again, all of those ways, that all of the tools in your toolbox that you have for staying grounded and centered and not being pulled off to the side. Remember my analogy of learning to drive the car. We can get caught up in watching the line down the middle of the road or watching what's off in the side. All right, third week, we've got Mars, which is retrograde on Sunday the 12th. It goes back into Capricorn. So we're going to be revisiting some themes that we're working in April, probably late March through mid-May, which was when Mars was in Capricorn before. So Mars is going to go back over some territory. So probably, you know, looking back to early May, what were we doing then? Where were we putting energy into? Do we need to revisit that? Do we need to restructure it? Capricorn is about structure. Sunday and Thursday both, we've got some nice Pluto aspects. It helps us be honest about our needs and also to deal directly with relationship issues rather than, you know, sweeping something under the rug. And on Friday, we don't have anything listed there, but the moon is important on Friday. The moon is actually going to align with Jupiter. And if you look forward to Sunday the 19th, which is a star day, on that day, Jupiter is trine Neptune, right there. So when the moon aligns with Jupiter on the 17th, it's actually activating that Jupiter-Neptune trine. So this is actually really positive, powerful energy. It helps, it may increase our emotional involvement, but we're also able to call upon our capacity for forgiveness and compassion. It also helps us find a positive perspective, that perspective that we're trying to find during these times, that positive perspective when things are difficult. And these are two spiritual planets. Until astronomers discovered Neptune, Jupiter ruled Pisces. So Jupiter is the ancient ruler of Pisces. Neptune is the current ruler, the modern ruler of Pisces. So they both carry this energy of spiritual growth and advancement and positivity. So try to take advantage of that energy as much as you can. You know, make this a retreat day or a meditation day or a, you know, letting go day, and move into that energy as much as we can. We really need that. We need that as a counterbalance to the drama and trauma we've been going through. Going back to, sorry, let's see, how do I do that? Oh, this is, okay. Going back to the 18th, and remember that energy is going to be strong also on 17th, the Friday. 18th, Mercury goes direct, so and it's also sextiling Venus, so it's got a nice opportunity to say, wow, I've been holding stuff in, now I can share it. And that should be more accepted, more able to be heard at that time. So we've got that on week 4, the Jupiter-Neptune trine. These are helping us let go of our attachment to drama. Now, most of us, or maybe some of us, I'm speaking for myself, are getting there by default because there's such an overwhelm with the drama that our options are either to become detached from it or just sink into it. So, but these two planets are helping us kind of be less attached to the drama. And people are very weary of the political power games, and it's a time to release toxicity. Tuesday, we've got some irritations. This isn't a big issue, but Mars is moving pretty slowly. It's going to go direct on the 27th, so moving pretty slowly. So any of these aspects that you see involving Mars can be more irritable. So just be aware of that. What I want to mention is, this isn't on your calendars that we sent out ahead of time because I didn't find the error until last night. But on the 25th, I think on your calendars, it says Sun trine Saturn, but Sun is also trining Uranus on that day. So we've got a grand trine going on. The Sun comes into be in a lovely relationship with Uranus and Saturn. So this is great. This is very productive. It helps us create new forms. but in inventive new forms. This is about solving problems in a new way. This is about being open to the new options and being able to implement them. This is Earth. This is having something physical happen. So I love this. So this whole week, you know, we start off with the Jupiter-Neptune trine, and then we end up with the Saturn-Sun-Uranus grand trine. There's a lot of really supportive energy, which I feel like is kind of a gift after all of the eclipse stuff. Now we do have a full moon on the 26th. That starts that last week of the month. This is a Pisces full moon. So there's more of a mystical quality associated with Pisces. The sun is in Virgo though, which is a very practical sign. So this is about the need to balance the practical and the mystical in our lives. We do have Venus squaring Pluto, so you know it can be a tumultuous time for relationships, and it can be hard to find common ground with loved ones. But with Pisces, it helps us let go more. It helps us not attach. So hopefully we can move through any problems in a more graceful way. Going back to Iris, how Iris moved gracefully through the dark and the light. Monday is, let's see, got some Mercury stuff going on, so we're not thinking all that clearly. People feel more suspicious. There's a lot of skepticism, cynicism, and that's the day that Mars stations direct, so it's kind of a crunchy day. So we'll have to remember back to the week before when we took advantage of those really powerful, lovely, supportive energies and say, oh yes, I remember what that was like. I've incorporated that into my being. I can bring that forward now. And then the 28th, 29th, again, Mercury's not very happy. It's making hard aspects to Saturn and then Pluto. So communications are not really clean that last week of the month. It just seems to be some sticky places that we get into, even though Mercury is moving direct by that point, right? Yes. Still, we're still dealing with some issues there. All right, so let's move on to September. All right, this is the calendar for September. And Elsie, feel free to interrupt me if there's anything that pops in there.
No, nothing new has come through, Pam.
All right, that's just fine.
We can go on, right.
So this is September. Whoops, I'll look at my notes here. All right, well, I'm going to start with the 3rd. So on the 3rd, we have Jupiter semi-square Saturn. The other aspects that day are nice and supportive, but Jupiter and Saturn are the slower moving planets, so they have a little bit more weight here. It's just a frustrating kind of aspect. It challenges us to overcome our resistance to the bigger changes that are needed. We may be feeling tired and say, oh my gosh, do we have to go through another change, or do we have to go through another layer of the onion? So there's a little bit of a fatigue factor involved, but it's not going to last forever. It's just more of a reality check. And we have, let's see, Wednesday. What do we have on Wednesday? Watch out for impulsiveness. Mercury in aspect to Mars, that's a harder aspect. And just we might say something before we think about it. And it can get us into trouble. Saturn goes direct on Thursday. It's been retrogrades for 5 months. So this is a positive development if you're wanting to start a business or wanting to expand a business, because while Saturn rules businesses and that kind of company structure. So, and while Saturn's retrograde, which it's been since late April, it's supposed to be not a great time to start a new business or expand a business. It's just not supportive. So once Saturn goes direct, we have more support for those of us who are wanting to expand some kind of a business opportunity. It's also a time when we just take things very seriously. You know, all of this week, Saturn is the reality check. Saturn's Dr. Phil. I always think of Dr. Phil with Saturn. How is that working for you? So we are asking ourselves that a lot this week. And yet on Friday and Saturday, we have some really nice supportive, helpful, insightful types of energies. Mercury and the asteroid Pallas Athena align there on Thursday. And then they create another Earth Grand Trine, again with Uranus and Saturn. So they're moving into place to create this Earth Grand Trine. A great time to brainstorm, great time to have innovative ideas, but that have a practical application. There's a little bit of sticky stuff in there too, Sun opposing Neptune, a little bit too much blame going on perhaps, but overall there's some nice supportive energies there. Not so much Saturday evening, especially Venus square Mars. That's kind of the battle of the sexes. All right, the next week starts with a new moon. So at this new moon, now this is the first lunar cycle that we're going to have since today. So in 2 months, it isn't linked with an eclipse. So it just shows you how big the eclipse season is. This is our first kind of breathe some fresh air. So the new moon occurs and Neptune is very closely opposite the sun and moon. So the new lunar cycle has a spiritual and creative part of it. We might be not as realistic as we might hope for, but we want to be in that more mystical, spiritual, creative zone. So if we're doing a new moon ceremony, those are the kinds of things that we want to focus on with that new moon. But the sun and moon are also in a close, challenging aspect to Uranus at the time of the new moon. So there's still this nervous energy. But we want to use that Pisces type of being able to go with the flow and not attach to things. That'll help us deal with some of that nervous energy. Moving into Monday, let's see. Mars is returning to Aquarius, so it will be there until November 15th. So it's going to start to stir things up again, bringing change. It's starting to build for the last Mars-Uranus square, which is on the 18th. So this is going to start to activate some of that changeable energy again. I like Tuesday a lot for several reasons. We've got Sun sextile Jupiter, trining Pluto. So there's a stronger sense of empowerment and possibility both. We still might have some uneasiness about the change that is occurring. Saturn is squaring Uranus, squaring Ceres, but still, we've got a feeling of support behind us. And this is a part of, we really got Tuesday, Wednesday linked together. And I've got that star on Wednesday because that's the day that Jupiter is sextile Pluto. So this is happening for the third time as well. This has been with us for this year. This is an opportunity to assess what is and isn't working. Jupiter's kind of amplifying Pluto's ability to, transform and transmute and help us see what's decaying so that it can be changed. And Pluto is magnifying those hidden truths that Jupiter is bringing forth in Scorpio. So it's supportive energy, it's helping things move forward, but it is pretty deep, it can be intense. Plus we've got relationship issues that day. Venus is opposing Uranus. It's also sextile Saturn, but the opposition to Uranus is going to be big because Venus is actually going to oppose Uranus 3 times because Venus is going to go retrograde very soon after this. The other 2 oppositions are October 31st and November 30th. So we want to watch this, watch what's going on in our relationships and our alliances, how we're dealing with our need for freedom and new energy, and if we feel at a stalemate, or if we need to break free, if we need new energy brought in somehow. So that's all going to be stirred up with Venus opposing Uranus. So on Thursday, we've got an opportunity for some healing. Mars and Chiron in sextile, and Mercury opposing Neptune. We we feel more compassionate, more forgiving. We don't have strong powers of discrimination, so don't make important decisions on that day, but I like this as kind of a time of softening. Friday, kind of irritable. Don't do anything risky because Mercury is actually triggering the Mars-Uranus square of next week. So information may come forward since we're talking Mercury, and easy to get into arguments, easy for things to erupt, for things to get bigger than they might be at other times. So just be aware of that. Still on Saturday, we should have better self-control. We've got Mercury trine Pluto. So we're still in that need to speak our truth, but it's a gentler process. And then let's leap to the next week. So I'm going to jump right to the 18th, that Mars square Uranus. So this is the earth-shaking Mars-Uranus square. This is the last pass. So we'll want to link it back in time to mid-May and then early August. All right, and I'm feeling like I need to keep going a little bit just because of time-wise. See what stands out to me. Saturn and Neptune, again, some grounding of reality. Watch communications. We may not be able to express ourselves exactly as we want to on Friday. Old insecurities may come forward. On Saturday, that's the equinox when the sun enters Libra, and the hours of darkness are equal to the hours of light. But the sun is also opposing Chiron. And I do have a chart for the equinox, so just so you can see it, there is the chart for an equinox or a solstice is said to show us something about the next 3 months. So this is really the birth chart for the coming season. So fall in northern hemisphere, spring in the southern hemisphere, but we've got a cardinal T-square. So that group opposing Chiron and then squaring Saturn. So we're talking about, again, the need to heal, some tension. It's not a time without its conflicts, and we also have that very strong Mars square Uranus and Mars conjunct the South Node. So some karmic issues coming forward. Again, an opportunity for us to look at, how do I handle my own anger? How do I handle my own need to, push my way through things? And how do I shift that? How do I use that assertiveness in a healthy way? We'll go back to, oops, there we go. All right, so last week of September, okay, well, again, Mercury aspects on Sunday is kind of a mixed bag. We may not feel entirely positive, but we can get things done and we can communicate our needs, so that's positive. The full moon on the 24th is a little bit off balance. So the moon is aligned with Chiron, so it shines a spotlight on those areas where we feel less confident than we want to about our capabilities. So this is a time to really focus on greater self-awareness, greater self-appreciation. Those are the qualities we want to be thinking about. But it is a rather serious time. Sun squaring Saturn, that's involved in the full moon too. Mars conjunct the South Node. We're just still dealing with some pretty big issues. But this is September. This is kind of moving towards the next phase, which is not quite as intense. So I think taking a breath, realizing that at this point we really are through some big portions of what this crunch time is about, and can start to perhaps breathe more easily. We have got some highlights in October that I do want to talk about, but I feel like, as we wrap up September, we've got a big chunk of stuff behind us. So let's take a look at October. Again, communication, information coming forward that pushes our buttons. And that's how the month starts out. Venus goes retrograde on Friday. So go back to the retrograde list and see, Venus rules relationship, finances. So while it's retrograde, we don't want to take a lot of initiative in that area. We want to be more reviewing. So don't get married. Try not to invest in things. It'll turn direct again on November 6th. So we're reevaluating people and our values and looking beneath the surface to see what really has value in our lives, both people and material things. So in the second week, we've got that new moon on Monday. So, and that's involving Ceres in a strong way. So starts a lunar cycle where our success builds on mutual support and the ability to get along with others. So relationships are very important at this time. We might feel some disappointment if people don't live up to our ideals. Again, remember that Venus is retrograde. But this is a part of our learning. It's a part of why Venus is retrograde, so that we can really, see a reality that maybe we didn't see before. Got a lot of Mercury activity on Tuesday and Wednesday. So, and there's some challenging aspects. So we've got some confusions, maybe some misunderstandings, maybe some unexpected events and obstacles. Venus squares Mars again on Wednesday the 10th. Again, that's the battle of the sexes that I mentioned earlier. So not a good day on Wednesday to try to mend fences. And then we've got Sun square Pluto on Thursday, which is again intensifying things. So some crunchy times. By Friday, we've got Mercury sextile Saturn. That's going to help us stabilize, going to help us speak our truth more clearly, hopefully bring some more groundedness into our communications. And then the next week, Mercury conjunct Venus on Monday. That's very nice. This is a day to choose if we want to sit down and have an honest heart-to-heart talk with somebody. Again, Venus is retrograde, so you might be reviewing the past, but it's a good day to go to some deeper places and really share what you feel. Tuesday through Friday, we've got some conflictive things going on there, mostly on Friday here. Even though Neptune is trining Mercury, which helps us, have compassion for others, it's also squaring Mars, so we're kind of conflicted about that compassion. Do we really want to feel that? How do we deal with the anger we might be feeling underneath the surface? How do we be honest with ourselves, honest with another person, but not go overboard? And I think that continues into the next week as well. We've just got so much Mercury stuff going on for some reason. So Monday the 22nd, there are some conflicts up. We again can speak our truth. Mercury sextile Pluto, but Mercury is in hard aspect to Saturn, so we may not feel as heard as we want to hear, as we want to be. Sun enters Scorpio on Tuesday, opposes Uranus, so it really sets up the idea that we really want to change now. We really want to move out of these places where we've been stuck, and this energy should help us do that. We may do some breakthroughs on that day. Things may break down to help us make breakthroughs. That's a part of that energy. And then I actually have a slide for the full moon on the 24th, because that is such a strong involvement with Uranus. So here, look here. Moon conjunct Uranus. But then we have Sun conjunct Venus. So this is pivotal for some relationship issues that may come forward. These are also, both of those are squaring, the nodes are involved here too. Those are square there. All right, I won't draw it all, but the north and south node are also involved in this full moon. So it can be a pivotal time. We may come face to face with some karmic issues that we hadn't thought about recently. Relationship themes are going to come forward with this. What we value is going to come forward with this. What do we really value, and what's the truth here? Look at my notes, see what else I've said about this. So I think I mentioned that these charts are set up for Washington, D.C. Maybe I didn't mention that, but I had to choose a location, so I chose Washington, D.C. since it's the capital of the United States. So it's just kind of fascinating this top point of a chart is called the midheaven. And so we have Sun and Venus aligned with the midheaven. And that has to do with, you know, our higher purpose, our goals, our ambitions, how we're manifesting our direction. So there's a big focus here on what do we want? What are our goals? What do we want to manifest? How do we bring our values, looking at Venus, how do we bring our values into manifestation? And then we have Venus, Uranus, and the moon aligned with what's called the nadir, the bottom point of the chart, which has to do with our emotional foundation. So it looks like there's some upheaval emotionally that really tells us what we want and what our goals are and what is of value to us. And this looks like it's very tied in with what's going on in the United States at that time. Also, the fact that in a chart like this, it's, you know, basically drawn for an event and a place that isn't a personal place. The moon represents the public. So this looks like the public is wanting breakthroughs. The public has a certain amount of unrest going on. I put in the Chandra and Omega symbols. I'll let you read those. They both have to do with looking for what is essential. So really, you know, reiterating this Venus Sun at the midheaven, looking for what's enduring, essential, and of greatest worth. And knowing that what is at the heart, what will endure and become more valuable. So with the saints' bones have turned to pure gold, it's honoring what has true value, what are the spiritual bones of what we've created and what we want in our lives. All right, so back to October. Let me wrap up that month. Well, we've got some nice energies following on Friday and Saturday. Actually, this is very supportive, Sun conjunct Venus. So, you know, supporting relationships. Again, Venus is retrograde, so it's not time to get married or date somebody new, but it is time to kind of establish better connections with those people that we are in relationship with. The last week of the month, we've got some frustrations on Monday. We've got Mercury conjunct Jupiter, Mercury trine Chiron. So especially that Mercury alignment with Jupiter in Scorpio, you know, right before they're both going to enter Sagittarius. So this is kind of the last push. What else are we going to reveal? What other information is going to come forward? What other hidden secrets need to come to the surface? This is kind of Mercury and Jupiter's last chance to bring all that out. But the healing trine, we have that trine between Mercury and Chiron. So that's lovely. That's saying, you know, we don't have to have it all figured out. We can trust. We can have faith. On Wednesday, we have the second Venus-Uranus opposition. So again, this is kind of a crunch time for relationships, knowing what we need to change, if something can withstand change and still stay solid, or does something need to be dismantled in a bigger way. But it can also be a breakthrough, a time of breakthrough when we say, yeah, it's not working, this is what needs to happen, so let's go forward in this way. So moving on to November, there's a lovely healing trine on Thursday the 1st. So I have Jupiter trining Chiron. So this helps us have faith and let go of controls, letting go of needing to have everything analyzed, and also letting go of the trauma, because of Jupiter still being in Scorpio. On Friday and Saturday, relationships are center stage again. We may be questioning our loyalties. It's a time when we may be talking about some difficult topics, but things that need to come forward, things that need to be discussed. All right, the second week, we've got Sun trine Neptune on Monday, so we're able to let go of what isn't working. Tuesday's a big day. Uranus backs up into Aries. Uranus squares the nodes change signs, so it really is a big shift point. We talked about this earlier, but that's why it has a star on it. We're feeling the urge for change. Things are changing, maybe suddenly, but we're also shifting into how do I bring my heart to everything? How do I bring my heart to what is in front of me, and how do I both care and nurture and allow others to care and nurture for me? So again, looking at all of those things that Cancer North Node can help us do. This is the beginning of that process. Our new moon on Wednesday is in Scorpio. It kind of, Scorpio continues the theme of change. And Jupiter's at the very last degree of Scorpio at the time of the new moon, so it does move into Sagittarius on Thursday. It begins a whole new year for Jupiter. This is kind of this can be lighter energy. Scorpio is very intense, very deep, very emotional, water sign. Sagittarius is a fire sign. Jupiter actually is the planetary ruler of Sagittarius, so Jupiter is much happier in Sagittarius. There actually can be a lot of positive developments in the next year with this new location for Jupiter. And I actually want to go to the next slide because I did the same thing that I did with Uranus and Taurus. So Jupiter expands, it enhances, it amplifies. And here are lots of the things that Sagittarius rules. So we look through the list and we say, okay, over this next year from November 2018 through November, December of 2019, look at all of these things that may expand, that we may find bigger than they've been before. Now, just knowing things, knowing where we are, Jupiter in Scorpio has dug up so much dirt. So it makes sense that Jupiter in Sagittarius, all of those lawsuits, all of the lawsuits that are needing to come forward after all of the dirt's been dug up. This is likely to be a big part of that year with Jupiter in Sagittarius. So, and then we also get self-righteousness and judgmentalness, which is kind of the downside of Sagittarius. And we also get great fodder for the late night comics, because satire is a part of what Sagittarius rules as well. But we've got really lovely things, spiritual growth and spirituality, writers and writing, publishing. There's so many things that Jupiter can help us develop further in that year that it is in Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is a more optimistic sign, just in general. It also rules wisdom and ethical behavior. So we may hopefully see more of that in our experience. All right, let's go back to November calendar. Where am I now? Okay, so Friday, this is a good day for social activities. Venus trining Mars, just a nice one. But Saturday, we can feel like, okay, I've done my bit. I need space. I need to go back to having my own way more. That third week, let's see what stands out. Sunday's kind of a rebellious day. We probably don't feel like having family dinner. So better to spend this day doing new things and let yourself be a little bit selfish. Mars enters Pisces on Thursday. So this is interesting because Mars is a very proactive sign. It's an assertive sign. And Pisces is very, it's about surrender and letting go, and it's reserved and more receptive. So while Mars is in Pisces, it'll be there till December 31st. We may feel more passive. We may also feel passive-aggressive. But we can also use Mars to kind of invigorate those higher qualities of Pisces. So taking action out of compassion, or being willing to fight for a cause, or putting more effort into our spiritual practice. Venus goes direct on Friday. It's going to be a relief, so it's okay to start dating and investing again. But hopefully we've done enough soul searching during the last couple of weeks so that we are more certain about going forward in our relationships and in financial concerns. Again, on Saturday, we've had 2 Saturdays in a row when relationships are not doing so well. There's some sticky places. These aren't major aspects, but it's just, these are probably better days to not try to set up a time when we want to really connect with somebody in an easy way. All right, so the next week we've got This is on Monday, the first challenging aspect to Jupiter since it entered Sagittarius. It squares Mars, so this is kind of a confusing day. We want to go big, but we don't know what direction to go in. And then the rest of the week is kind of building to the full moon. So the sun trines Chiron, helps us heal old emotional wounds, but then it's in a hard aspect to Uranus, so we're restless and don't want to take the time to do the inner work. So, and I did set a slide for the November full moon. Oops, sorry. There we go. Because the sun's conjunct Jupiter. So we've got this emphasis. Jupiter's just entered Sagittarius, and we're all agog. We're all saying, okay, what does this mean? And here we've got the sun really emphasizing that and saying, here's what it means. It's a full moon. Look at all that it means. So we really want to watch this day. Mercury's involved too, so big information coming forward. Maybe it's a big lawsuit or information coming through during a legal matter. Something like that might be involved here. There's also a mutable T-square, which is a challenging aspect. Let's see where we are. With the, okay, so the moon in Gemini and Mars in Pisces. So there's that T-square. So yeah, we really are going to see early on what effect Jupiter in Sagittarius is going to have. And it is going to be active for many days, both the full moon and then the exact Sun-Jupiter alignment is the following Sunday, and the exact Jupiter-Mercury alignment is the following Tuesday. So really the energy of this full moon is going to extend out several days, and we're going to see more and more unfolding, the information coming forward, whatever the legal matter is, or maybe it's the higher wisdom coming forward, which would be the really positive side of this. The Chandra and Omega symbols. This is about looking for a meaning where there doesn't seem to be any. So trying to sense the deeper messages. If there are misunderstandings, what's underneath those misunderstandings, and what's kind of between the lines of what somebody is saying. This is our time to strengthen our communications with others and with ourselves, to really know what we think and feel. Okay, let's go back to the November calendar. All right, on Saturday, Neptune goes direct, which is why I put the star there. Neptune's energy, when it's strong, just feels more floaty. So, you know, while it's stationed, it is stronger. We may feel like we really don't want to engage as much. It is kind of mystical, creative, spiritual energy, but it's also more passive. So this is not a big day to go off and do something that takes a lot of energy. I put a star on the 25th, that's Sunday as well, because that is Sun conjunct Jupiter. So it does bring forward that energy we were just talking about from the full moon, and really brings it forward to Sunday. And then Monday and Tuesday, we've got Mercury square Mars, and then Sun conjunct Mercury, Mercury conjunct Jupiter. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday are all kind of blurred together in my mind, and they really are manifesting a lot of what we were talking about with that full moon. Information, conflict, big stuff coming forward, big ideas, all of that is a part of that time frame. So on Wednesday, we've got a Pluto-Jupiter aspect. So that could also have to do with, you know, legal battles unfolding, kind of the power struggle that gets played out within that arena. And on Friday, we have Venus opposing Uranus for the third time. So this could be a time to resolve that issue, whatever that issue was that's been linked to those other Venus-Uranus oppositions. Or it could be the third straw, you know, the straw that breaks the camel's back, and we finally say, I'm done. Let's move on to something else.
So Pam?
Yes.
Before we leave November,
yeah.
Amanda had a question about November 6th. She said that is the midterm election day, and there were some challenging points that you mentioned for November 6th about the energy. She
Mhm.
wondered if you had any insight on election outcomes.
Wow. Okay, thank you. I didn't even think about the elections. Surprises, things we don't expect, and things that are going to move us forward. I think of the North Node entering Cancer. You know, Cancer rules mothers. It rules the feminine. So maybe one of the surprises, I'm sorry, here goes my political bias. Hopefully lots of women get into office. That's one thing I could see with this, North Node going into Cancer. This is the new direction. We're bringing the feminine into the realms. We're bringing sensitivity into the realm. We're bringing all of this into the realm. We're bringing caring, compassion. We're bringing this back, people. This is what we want to bring back. So, gosh, I don't know. That could be really positive. Uranus squaring the nodes could mean some surprises. So not everybody's going to be happy. People are going to be kind of surprised, shocked. Maybe demonstrations that come out as a part of this. But I'm letting my hopefulness kind of guide this, but that would be what the North Node in Cancer is trying to get us to do.
Well, everyone is saying yay, thumbs up on the chat.
Okay, let's all put our energy into that. The feminine coming forward, caring, compassion, sensitivity. Let's bring this forward. We're moving out of the Leo bombastic bigness. We're moving into sensitivity and that kind of thing. That feels very nice. Let's go with that. Let's make that happen. Thank you for the question. That was from Amanda?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Okay, let's move on to December, which is right there. Okay, so we are going a little bit over, but I hope everybody's okay with that. So on Saturday, when Mercury goes into Scorpio, we enter Scorpio. So maybe digging up more dirt. Now this is confusing to me because we just had, all right, I have to look at my calendar because something doesn't seem right. Mercury goes back into Scorpio. Yes, it does. So, oh yes, so Mercury is retrograde right now. Okay, so it goes, that's why I was confused. It goes direct on the 6th. Sorry, I lost myself in the mix. So Mercury is revisiting the sign. This is Scorpio. And I wrote in my notes, digging up more dirt, and maybe it is. I always think that there are reasons behind these things. If a retrograde planet's going to go back into the sign it was before, it's because it isn't done. You know, it needs to do something else there. So maybe we've got more information to come forward. Starting that next week, it's kind of uncomfortable energies on Sunday. We've got Sun square Mars. So, and we've got combativeness, kind of irrational thinking going on. Monday, we have some healing opportunities. Mercury is retrograde, so choose your words wisely, but let there be compassion coming forward. Chiron is in Pisces now, and so we want to be in that place where we are accepting, allowing, and not going into self-sacrifice or martyrdom or anything, but just being in our compassionate heart. So Wednesday, the sun is triggering a Uranus-Neptune semi-square. So this is an important aspect. It's actually exact on the 15th, but we can see the sun here is aspecting both of them, so it's triggering the energy of it. This seems to be a test of our capacity to be more conscious. This is the time to overcome naivete and overcome avoidance. On Thursday, we've got the new moon and Mercury goes direct. So 2 opportunities for a new beginning. And that new moon is in Sagittarius. So, you know, when we do our ceremonies, we say, what can I really believe in? What can I invest my heart into? What can I invest this fire of Sagittarius into? What's the new adventure I want to be on? That's the energy of Sagittarius. On Friday, Mars is conjunct Neptune and semi-square Uranus. So it is also triggering the energy of that Uranus Neptune semi-square that comes up. So on Friday, watch where anger is triggered. Mars is in Pisces, so we may not really be clear on what's going on. We may go into like kind of that passive-aggressive kind of mode, but make sure you're managing feelings, managing anger, not suppressing them. Chiron goes direct on Saturday, so all of this week is really about how do I heal my faith? How do I surrender to really a positive energy and have the faith that that is in place, that we're not just hanging out here and fumbling around by ourselves, that there is something bigger than us. And I like that the next day Mercury's trine Chiron again. So look here, Monday Mercury's trine Chiron, Sunday Mercury's trine Chiron. So this is nice healing energy. It's an opportunity to make peace in many ways. Make peace with ourselves, make peace with others, and words can help us do that. Mercury is the communicator. Mercury enters Sagittarius. That's lovely. Helps us think in more expansive ways. Now, while it's in Scorpio, we're kind of in the trauma. While it's in Sagittarius, we're able to think outside the box more. Then we do have the Uranus-Neptune semi-square on Saturday. So this is a tension between the old and new, between endings and beginnings. It reflects back to early 1990s when Uranus and Neptune were aligned in Capricorn, like from 1990. It was very strong in 93. So it was a big time of change. I know it was in my life, in a lot of other people's lives. So with this semi-square, it's asking us to reassess, who have we become since those big changes happened? How are we building on those changes? What other information can we draw from our experience back then? What are the spiritual implications of those? And then how are we going to build on how we've grown since that time? Sunday, positive outweighs the negatives. Good day for stabilizing love relationships. On Wednesday, we've got some heightened sensitivity, so watch judgment of self or others. We're starting to feel a sense of change on the 20th. Here on the 21st, we've got Mercury conjunct Jupiter again. So, what is the information that's going to come forward in a big way? And then that's also the solstice and right before the full moon. So the chart for the solstice is very similar to the chart for the full moon. So let's take a look at that. Mercury's conjunct Jupiter, as we just discussed. So that's big. Both of them are square Neptune, however. So, we've got lots of big information coming forward, but we're not clear on it in some way, or it's not making sense. That's the Neptune piece, or we'd rather not look at it, or that's the Neptune piece of this. Now, remember that this is kind of the birth chart for the next season. So winter in the northern, summer in the southern hemisphere. So this is explaining some of the energies that we're going to be working with over those next 3 months. But what's lovely is Venus and Ceres are trine Neptune. This is lovely compassion. This is supportive. This is a feminine energy. So even if we have some uncertainty, we've also got a lot of heart and a lot of ability to transmute the trauma represented by Scorpio and to shift it in some way. We do have Mars squaring the moon and moon squaring Neptune. So again, there's emotionality coming forward. It's a time of change again, but again, I feel like we've got a shift taking place. We've got new potentials coming forward. We've got the North Node in Cancer, and I really feel like that's going to start drawing us forward. We can't ignore that. As a humanity, this is the soul growth, and it's going to draw us in that direction. So in my mind, we're moving into hopefully a more kind of enlightened and heart-centered space. Okay, let's go back to December. Okay, the very end of the month, what do we have? Oh, okay, Mercury triggers the Uranus-Neptune aspect there on the 24th, so more of that type of energy. Pay attention to where the tension is coming from and what mindsets you're being asked to shift. Thursday, Friday through Sunday, Venus aligns with Ceres, and then they both sextile Pluto. So our capacity for a deeper connection with others is enhanced, our capacity to care more deeply, to have compassion, to really see a truth and have that be okay, to not be judgmental about it, but to really allow a greater intimacy to take place. We are willing to share more of ourselves and to reveal our hearts and our truth. And then on the so New Year's Eve, Mars enters Aries. So a big impulse of energy. I haven't looked forward to January. I thought 6 months is plenty, but it's very interesting that Mars enters Aries and it kind of launches us into the new year. And then I did pull a card for wrong way, for guidance. So this card is called Initiation. So what it makes me think is that, you know, these 6 months, and especially the first 3 months that we're already in, but these 6 months are really a time of initiation. It says the Star Queen is offering a higher and more refined ways of understanding the laws that govern the mystery of life. So this is about that higher perspective. It is about not getting caught up in the trauma. It is about, I mean, and this is the initiation part of it. We don't find out that we can be above something until it's below us. I mean, we learn, we go through an initiation and we learn we can rise above something because something is there that we want to rise above. And I love this part of the interpretation of the card. No longer held by the limitations that previously laid claim to your soul. You are able to forgive and heal wounds of the past and to release your judgments and limited view of the world. And this is from another Isha Learner deck on the Triple Goddess deck. So overall, I feel really positive about this. I know we've got a lot of, you know, challenging times, but I just want to keep reminding us of that image of the artwork that we were looking at. I'm going to go back there. Mm-hmm. That even though this is a challenging image, it also brings me peace because she is courageous and the path does continue. Even though it doesn't look like it has support, it's not falling down. It is there and it's solid, and there's something about trusting that. Okay, that's my spiel.
So Pam, I do have a question, and yeah. I'm looking at the November chart, and Claire asked, how is the energy on Thanksgiving Day for family dynamics? And that is November 22nd, which is a full moon. Sun enters Sagittarius, Mars is going to semi-square Pluto. So,
well, and here's the chart for that day. Again, I didn't even think about Thanksgiving. I was just all wound up with the astrology going on. It's not a good day to bring up politics or religion. I mean, that's true of any Thanksgiving, but look at this. We've got all of this stuff in Sagittarius, and Sagittarius rules religion and belief systems and dogmatism and self-righteousness, and this is the way it is, and this is the way it has to be. And this is amplified, and it's conjunct Mercury, so people want to speak their piece in a big way. And then the lovely moon in Gemini, you know, an emotional need to be heard. Well, if everybody is spouting off, nobody's feeling heard. And then Mars, you know, squaring both of that, both chunks there. You know, we don't want to be angry, but we don't want to go into kind of a passive aggressive place. So we really got to rise above it in a way. We've got to put ego aside, but not go into self-sacrifice or martyrdom. So it is a challenging day. Let's see what else we've got that's going to help us out there. you know, there can be a lot of hope and joy as long as we stay away from the tricky subjects, I think. Because you get Sun and Jupiter and Mercury together, you know, just by themselves, and that's a happy thing. Everybody's happy, making jokes. Just make sure the jokes aren't at somebody else's expense. I guess that would be my advice for that. Does that make sense? All right. Any other questions before I put the slideshow away?
No, that's it right now for the questions.
Okay, doke. Alrighty.
Okay, here we are. So I wanted to see if anyone did have some questions, and there's a way to raise your hand. If you go down to your participant icon on the bottom of your screen there, especially if you're on a desktop, and click on that, and you'll see a box will open with an option to say raise hand. So if you click on the raise hand button, I'll be able to see that, and then you'll be able to unmute yourself. So if you go to manage participants, there's a way that
I can see Selena raised her hand.
yes. Oh, there you go, Selena. Great. So unmute yourself. I'll unmute you, or unmute. There you go.
Okay, Pam, I'm celebrating my 65th birthday on December 5th.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'll be in Vegas actually all that week, from that Monday until that Friday.
Okay.
What do you see on the 5th?
So that's the time when we are meant to be looking back at the 1990 to 93 time period.
Okay. Oh,
so
when I got married, 1990.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, this is a good time for reflection then. You know, how are things going, and are you getting what you need? You know, Uranus is, do I have enough freedom? Neptune is, do I feel spiritually and emotionally fulfilled and creatively fulfilled? So this is an opportunity to look at that area of your life and say, okay, what is the next step? Because it is a time not to leave things unsaid and leave things unaddressed. It is a time to, okay, what is the next step? How do we move forward from here? Does that make sense?
Yeah, good vacation week then for me.
Yay, very good. Well, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
I want to mention to everyone that if you called in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9, and you can also mute and unmute by *6. So I'll check and see if anybody. Okay, we have Maria Wise just said happy birthday, Selena. She's on the chat. I'll beat you to 65 on August 25th. So thanks, Maria Wise. So if anybody else, let me see. If I'll check if anybody else has raised their hand, or you can put something in the chat box. Double checking here.
Probably everybody's saturated.
Yes, I think we're all pretty saturated. Yeah. So Pam, this has been very informational, and it was such a great way to do this. Totally different approach. Yeah. I liked it very much.
I had fun with it, and I like being able to kind of manipulate the slides and go back and forth, and yeah, so I hope everybody enjoyed it. It was really fun. You know, everybody's up there in those little pictures on the top of my screen, and it's just fun to see people's faces and see names, and it's good.
Really great. So what we're going to do, I'm going to make replay just as soon as we click off. And there is both an iCloud MP4, and also I'm going to make it into a YouTube because everybody can easily access that. The YouTube will be unlisted except for those that signed up for the program, and I will send them the link on the replay link. And also, Pam will have information when we send out the replay info about specific sessions with her for those that attended at a lower rate. And you might want to check in based on everything we saw upcoming to see what's going to be happening very specifically for you personally. So Pam, thanks again. This was great. I'm just in check chat one more time. Yeah, everybody's just delighted. Yes, Rabina asked if the slides, you're going to get the complete slide show that Pam presented. That'll be part of the replay package information. Okay? All right, everyone. It was great. Pam, any last words? That I think just we need to build resilience.
Well, I think resilience is, definitely a part of it. This whole thing with keeping a higher perspective and not getting caught up in the drama, and just, staying in center more. That's it's easy to say. For me personally, I'm doing a meditation series that has to do with, kind of merging more with the divine self. And I think the more that we conceptualize that, to know that we're bigger than this, and we're bigger than the drama, we're bigger than our personalities, we're more than any of this, and really start to bring that perspective into our lives. Again, sounds very lofty, but I feel like that's important while we still stay grounded. It's yeah, it's not like rolling out of bed and being able to do it. We have to really put some energy into it and some consciousness into it. But I think that's a part of the pressure of this time, so that we make a new choice about how we go through life.
That sounds like great advice. And I will also mention that I'll let everyone know Dr. Gail Van Kanigan has been studying some shamanism. She is also an Eden energy medicine practitioner, and she's going to teach the Merkaba meditation. So I'll let everyone know we're going to do it on Zoom just like this, and another way to get connected to higher sources while staying grounded at the same time.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.